percentile, not as
Okay.
in you match 8 out of 10, somebody else matches 6 out of 10 or 6 out of 9 or whatever. Doing the percentile, I find, is clearer whether or not there's improvement, because people will often see, oh, I went from 4 to 5. And 4 is the 25th percentile and 5 is the 60th percentile. So they get a distorted sense of how much shift is actually happening. So by going percentile, you get a better thing. And in this case, what you see is there are 17 items which you had a match for patterns, of which 16 got better. And better means generally it goes from the old value to new value, has dropped down by at least 5 percentile. And which one? Just one here doesn't show it, and that's because you only dropped 2 percentile. So it wasn't that much of improvement, but everything else is technically objectively showing an improvement.
Okay.
Okay, and I like using this particular, actually, let's go on to show. I like using this method for comparing results, because subjectively you may not have seen, or with chronic fatigue syndrome especially, you may not have remember where you were on a prior test, so you don't remember that you have improved. So one like goes is trying to find ways of getting objective information, because if you don't see objective improvement, then why do the test again?
Yeah.
Especially if somebody with like chronic fatigue syndrome, which is the main people I deal with, or the people I started with, where they are extremely tight on money. So so the evaluation. So basically, when you asked a question, I'm not sure if there was any improvement, I went here and I saw across the board you had less of all the bacteria matches for all the symptoms you have. So from my perspective, I view that as a quote objective improvement.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. I'm an ex-teacher, so I tend to scab and override. So you go ahead.
No, yeah, because my initial consensus was like, because as you know, I used Biome Site, and I don't recall documenting any of my symptomology on my first or secondary. So that's why I had a lot of questions around, to the pattern matching. But yeah, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. Basically, because we have 4,000 samples from Biome Site, and we have enough, something like 30 or 40 or 50% of them have annotations. It gives me a rich data set as a statistician to be able to get patterns out of it.
Okay.
And mainly because of the 4,000 samples, which if you take a look at most clinical studies, you find in most clinical studies deals with 30, perhaps a big one is 50 people. Here we have 4,000, so it means I'm happy. It's statistician's heaven, and it also ends up meaning the Biome Site becomes the preferred test, whether or not you test directly with them, test elsewhere, and I'm very happy Rosa continued to do free translations of other people's FASTQ files, because it just means it's good. It's a generosity which I really appreciate her doing, and many people do it because they get data from elsewhere. Okay, so that was the first question you had there. The next question, and I'm somewhat going to lead, is I'm going to go over and look at your sample from a new perspective, which I'm in the midst of doing. I haven't automated it, but I'm curious to see how it is. And what we do is we go over to, I think it's changing. No, it's over on my thing. Okay, it's the microbiome tree. Okay, microbiome tree allows you different ways of selecting bacteria. And as you go down, we have things color-coded. So if you go down here, and you see you have a bunch of things which are too high. Well, there's two ways you can go. You can hand build your own solutions, because all you have to do is click here. And welcome to, okay, give me a second. I'm just going to flip to the window, so when I go between tabs, you actually see the new tab, which is, okay. Okay, you should be back. And if you go over here, for the ones which are too high, you can go over and take a look at it. It gives you all sorts of things. But if down the bottom, you want to basically decrease, so just type a magic word decrease here, makes life easy. Click here, so you get the items which are most reported in studies there. So basically, we have quercetin is cited there, dietary fiber. So you get a list of things which you can go and hand build your own suggestions from.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know the definitive answer. I have automated a bunch of things for what I think are reasonably good, but I have made sure I kept the ability for people to roll their own because, hey, nobody has a definitive answer. No consultant or provider knows exactly how to do it, and particularly no lab knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Anybody who claims I disagree. So we can go there. So that's one of them. We can go down and go something like that. Now I'm going to, there's a big red circle there. And the reason I have the red circle there, it goes over. We have nothing known about relationship. We don't have enough information on that bacteria. Let's try the one above it. Oh, same thing. It could be because of the naming convention. Let's go down and take a look at another one. Oh, let's try this one. Now we have a list of all the bacteria that impacts it. It was too high, so you want to see if there's anything that decreases it. That means a negative slope. And we have some things to it. Now we also have probiotic. If you click that, and then we see there are no probiotics and will actually decrease this bacteria per se. The first one that did show up, actually, let's just make sure I do it correctly. Impact there. Yes, there's one probiotic which potentially could decrease it. Not the strongest relationship, but it is a possibility. So finding that particular one, I know it's going to be a little bit of fun, but it potentially has a negative impact. Again, I'm trying to just walk through the process of it.
Yeah.
If you go down here, we have another one, and we have morphine. Now, this whole thing comes from a big set of 1,000 people who are healthy, who had gone through shotgun analysis. So from that, I build up the relationships from healthy people.
Okay.
And from there, I can say, okay, if this bacteria is up, does this other bacteria go up or down? Nice and simple.
Mm-hmm.
But if the other bacteria is a probiotic, that implies that probiotic would have the same type of impact.
Okay.
The catch is I'm not having to wait for somebody to do a clinical study. I can infer that from the data itself, which basically gives me actually far more data usually. So we go down here, we click probiotics here, and there we have them. And I'll go and implied search. We have, oops, we have nothing. So there's no probiotics to address that issue, which, okay, there. But if you go back to here and you click on that one, then you find out whatever we can find from the literature, and in which case, sorry, the only suggestion is morphine.
Okay.
Okay. Again, we dealing with a horrendous thing called sparse data. And a lot of my effort is trying to extrapolate between the bits of data we have. So we have something a little bit more reliable than shooting blindly at things. Okay, so we go down there. So we mainly have a bunch of highs, not that many. And then we have some lows, which we could do the same thing. And let's go over here. And those are somewhat generally easier to do because generally most of the relationships are increasing. Oops, okay, let's do that again. Okay, hold true, hit the wrong key. And there we have bifidum longum infantis will help increase that one. And it has a pretty significant impact on it. And then bifidum 2, so we have a whole bunch of bifidobacterium are ones which will increase that one which you're low in.
Within the more info, if we drilled into there, does that give you more like a dosing range?
No, generally dosage range, you can generally the assumed dosage based on studies is 50,000 50,000 BFUs per day.
Okay. And that's just across the board.
Across the board. There are a few exceptions, but in general, the going through clinical studies, 50,000 BFU is generally where you guarantee to get positive results. Lower dosages may or may not.
Okay.
Actually, if let's go and since you asked about dosages, let's go back and back to the site and let's flip to the top and look up and sorry, libraries, supplement dosages.
Mm-hmm.
So we have there, and now if I type in bifidobacterium, you can now go down and see the studies and think, for example, we were talking about longum. So if we click on here, and now we get a list of the studies and the amount is if the study is completed, you see the results. If it's not, it's something which is ongoing. Generally, if it's ongoing, it has been reported, usually it means that there are no positive results. Why? Because people want positive results in the publications. Yeah. It's part of the having to do inferences. So we basically find the first one here is 10 billion CFU, and this one is 1 billion CFU. So that will give an idea of range.
Okay.
The one of the sites which I make heavy use of, okay, and up here, let's just flip over and bounce all over the universe for you. Is there are free sites here and custom probiotics, Maple Life Sciences, which is the cheapest and has the most choices, and then bulk probiotics. Custom probiotics generally, if you go and take a look at their let's take a look and see if we can find what they find for bifidobacterium. Okay, here. And if you go down and look at the label, serving suggested size is 0.8 grams, which is 240 billion CFUs.
Mm-hmm.
And my suggestion is 50 BCFUs is probably a reasonable amount. This side, most of the time, his dosages are over 200 billion CFUs. Mind you, be warned, at that dosage, some people will hurt immensely and feel horrible for the first couple of days.
Is that the same principle, like a minimum effective dose, though, typically?
Yeah, but basically, herxing and that type of thing, which some people don't know how to interpret. My usual thing is start with a low dosage, like for example, a child dose, which is just 30 billion CFU, see if you react. And by react for probiotics, I mean any of the following things happen. A, you fart differently. If you fart differently, the probiotic is having an effect. If your stool shape change, that also indicates the probiotic is having an effect. And last thing, if you find you sleep harder or have more trouble sleeping, especially if you take it at around bedtime, it's probably having an effect. So those are my 3 rules of thumb, whether or not the probiotic is actually doing something. And usually that will show up within 2 to 3 days.
Okay.
So that is rule of thumb. The catch is if there is no effect, shows up and you just increase the dosage and still no effect whatsoever, then my usual suspicion is chances are either you don't need a probiotic or the probiotic is actually dead on arrival. And dead on arrival is a problem with a lot of store-bought probiotics, because when you go to the co-op, like locally, you find them nicely sitting in a refrigerated shelf. If you go to the back room, it's not refrigerated. If you go to the distributor from Texas in the middle of summer, it's not refrigerated. In other words, there's a good chance that probiotic sitting on the shelf has spent most of its life not refrigerated.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, there's always a concern. The the 3 sites here, which are the ones I recommend, a couple of reasons. One is all of them are single strain probiotics, which means you are not getting somebody magical concoction. You're getting specific species for specific reasons you want to take those species. So in other words, you are very targeted. Plus the fact that if you take a mixture of 4 things and something adverse happens or whatever, you end up getting diarrhea or whatever. You got four probiotics there. You don't know which one is causing it.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it one at a time, you are able to gain knowledge and make easy decisions. My usual recommendation is to go with Maple Life Sciences for a couple of reasons. One is, although they sell on eBay, the price is, well, how should I say it? Let's take a look at Rive. Okay, you may have okay.
They're from Canada, I believe.
No, they come from India.
Oh.
And
okay.
and no problems with customs.
Oh, it says right there, Indian bulk exporter.
Yep. And so here we have, okay, now, if you take a look at the custom probiotics, if you remember right, their bottles were $150 a crack.
Yeah.
Here you have what? What do you mean? Here I go here and I get it as powder. So if I go and get their smallest dosage, it's 1080. Okay, let's go down here. That's 25 grams. So you can determine how much you want. But here's where the shocking thing: if something works, you go up, you get 4 times. Okay, that's the price. It's $10 for 25. 4 times should be $40, right? It's 22.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
And 22 is half the price you'll probably pay for any probiotics at a local co-op.
Yeah.
And what I actually did when I first came across them, I ended up ordering just about every single probiotic I could find there. And when they arrive, they would say manufacture date. Usually the manufacture date is 3 or 4 weeks before it arrives.
Mm-hmm.
So you are getting it direct from the factory to your mailbox in less than a month.
Do they send it in cooler pack?
No, they don't. But they send it by Federal Express.
Okay.
So I'm not too concerned, given that it's 4 days since it's been manufactured, or I mean 4 weeks since it's been manufactured. It is unlikely to suffer any significant amount of loss.
Okay. Do they provide any certificate of analyses or anything like that?
No, they don't. I wish they did. They don't identify the species. However, they do tend to have all the possible certifications you could possibly want on them.
You know, I used to work in this industry, and I've been to India myself working with the FSAI. So yeah. I might reach out to a couple of friends I have out there that I did some partnerships with.
That'd be awesome. If you can share any information from that with me afterwards, I would appreciate it. But so far, I have been absolutely pleased with the result. The other 2 I make use of if they don't have it. A few things other people have that they, for example, they don't have Akkermansia, but Let's go back a couple. Okay, bulk probiotics has single strain there.
Yeah, I've
Akkermansia.
ordered. Yeah, I ordered a couple bottles through here through one of the consultants I've worked with.
Yeah.
With quite good success. So
Yeah. So generally, the three providers there all have the key things: single strain, wide variety, reasonable price. Custom probiotics was the original. They're the only one who gives the actual strain. So depending on how picky you are, and whether or not something really is, but generally, because of the price point being so high for a bottle,
yeah.
is I mentioned them, but generally these guys are the ones which I do it. And for example, okay, so we have 50 grams of, okay, expensive, but if you take a look at the Acromencia from Pendulum, the other brand, the price is actually a bit cheaper, but it depends whether or not you which way. And the other nice thing is most of them have no fillers. The Indian one has fillers, but it's a rather innocuous one. It's just a it's more a lightweight filler to give the bacteria something to eat of in transit. So okay, so
Now with sorry, I had a question. Because Acromantia was one of the items I was trying to increase, I think, between my two results.
yep.
And it was a very, based off the biome site report, and I believe here too, like it was very small improvement. Now, in theory, if you had SIBO or someone had intestinal permeability and we're taking not only supplements, we know that there's possibility of it not getting absorbed. But when it comes to probiotics, do you suffer the same risk?
No, no.
No.
The probiotics don't get absorbed in the body. They get absorbed into the ecosphere of the gut.
Okay.
Okay, now you cite Akkermansia. So I brought up Akkermansia. Okay, let's see what probiotics you should take with Akkermansia to help it. So here we have, again, we have probiotics. I click here and now hold down my shift key and click on R square. And now we find first two are pending one. Third one is pending one. Rats. Fourth one is pending. This one, Endocarditis felicum, has a significant effect. And that one is available. India sells that one. Not sure who's their one. That one is also sold by India. So two of them are sold by India. Hey, recognize that, friend?
Yeah.
So, and so we have the list of probiotics which will help it along, and then now there. So if you are taking Akkermansia, you may want to add in some of those because they should in theory support Akkermansia.
Okay. So the best way to do this is to focus on the impact slope.
Yeah.
In this case, if I'm deficient, so I'd look for the highest impact slope and then start out from the top.
Actually, high as R squared. The impact slope is, you could use it, but if there's a choice between two things with the same value, I would go for the higher impact slope. But otherwise, R squared shows the percentage of impact.
Okay. So I filtered down by that.
Right. Part of it is the in my blog post explaining it. I went and went on. The two numbers can be confusing. You need the slope, whether or not positive or negative. R squared is the key factor you should look at. It shows how much of impact it has.
Okay.
So, okay. At this point in time, Okay, let's go back to wherever. Okay, let's close some windows off for the moment. There we go back. We are now back into Microbiome Prescription. So let's take a look at, let's go back to the simple UI. Okay, so we have the varieties of beginner symptoms. And what it does, it goes and calculates out what you have, and it looks like you had a few things marked, which is why the comparison picked these items up. And I think, I'm not sure if it takes it from one or the other. Chances are it may take it from both the old ones and the new ones, because if a symptom has disappeared, you still want to have it in a comparison. So we have there, and then we have all the choices there. Okay. Okay, now we have this one using PubMed studies, which basically we have PubMed studies, but you don't have a high enough match to any of the published study combinations. Let me explain that. From PubMed studies, let's go over here and actually take a look at. Naming one of the conditions you have, or looks like SIBO. Would that be it?
That's the potential. But I mean, holistically, I have long COVID, which transpired into all this.
Okay, now over here we have SIBO, and what we have here is we have all the bacteria reported with SIBO. The fact that you don't show up as a potential SIBO means that the degree of match you have there is, I think, below 85 percentile. So nothing shows up. In other words, you don't have a strong appearance of SIBO. The second way of taking a look at it, okay, actually, let's go back. Let's take a look for long COVID. And we have the similar thing here, and we have all the combinations there. The shifts all the way around. And again, you don't have enough definitive matches compared to other people to put you in the top 15 percentile. Okay, now, but you have long COVID. Let's take a look over at something else. You have long COVID, and let's go over here. PubMed strict cross-validation. Now, long COVID is there. So now what it's going to do is it's going to work. You are the 62 percentile. Okay, so that's why you never made it. Okay, now if I go and get the report, give it a few seconds. This gives an interesting report. In some ways, it's a report intended to be able to walk into MDs and give them a convincing story to work from. It's very targeted for how MD thinks. Not naturopath or consultant, but it's there. It does do a bunch of calculations. There we go. So at the top, it just goes in. Good. I had to remember to leave that in. So it goes and identifies all the bacteria shifts which are associated with long COVID, and give you a reference to a study showing that.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Then it gets cross-validated suggestions. These are all okay. I do make mention. I combine long COVID with chronic fatigue syndrome because they're so similar. And particularly, we have a lot of literature on things that help chronic fatigue syndrome. We don't have much on long COVID. So it's, again, my usual extrapolating from what we have to the best guesses we can make. I'm always working on best odds. So now we have all the things which which my analysis algorithm says you should take, and keyword, there is documentation on it helping ME-CFS. So in other words, this is something that's suggested, and voila, here is a study showing, or in this case, 3 studies, or Ah, naturally, low dosage is well studied for and for chronic fatigue syndrome for helping. So it's there. It may persuade a physician to be willing to try you on low dosage.
Now, is this cross-validated suggestions? They're extrapolated holistically based off my long COVID symptoms. However, is this list curated off my latest bacteria sample that
It
maybe
is
somebody could
curated.
contribute?
Okay, these are the things which are positive on your latest bacteria sample.
Okay.
So you get positive there, and they are positive for helping for your condition.
Oh, okay, great.
So it is a cross-validated.
Okay, that's what that
This
means.
is what
Okay.
should help your bacteria. This is what is reported in literature to help your condition or the sibling in this case, in which case it gives you a list of things which are very low risk and high probability of helping.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
Okay, and now down below I give alternative names because sometimes things up at the top or call something one country something else and different. So this is basically just a friendly cross-reference. Okay, now here's where it even gets better. Here is a bacteria. Here's the things that impact it for every single bacteria which identify as too high or too low. So you got the complete breakdown. Bacteria by bacteria linked to the study. For example, study 2,800 studies. We click that. And there you go to the study.
Nice.
So as I said, this is very much engineered explicitly for being able to walk into MD and give them overwhelmingly complete information. As in, this isn't just something you got off the internet.
Yeah.
This is, excuse me, everything is documented, expression up the yin yang,
Yeah.
and goes on and on and on. And then we have identical suggestions, which are things that I calculate, which we have no literature on.
Okay.
So basically, it's above and here combined is what you get, but this isolated into 2 layers. And the second layer, for example, avoiding reaching mushrooms. Okay, that's nice. Not doing intermittent fasting, avoiding slippery elm. Some of those may well be suggested by health practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, wait a minute, I have hesitancy about that one. Those are the things there. And then you have down the bottom, you have, I think, okay, I did just 94 references. Some cases it's 1,500, but up above you saw we have 2,800 references linked.
Okay. Yeah, so those additional suggestions I've seen on the consensus report, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
So as a user, I was looking into that, but maybe following this protocol right here seems a little bit easier.
It probably is. It's easier. It's only available for a small number of conditions because I have to have enough documented things to help a condition before I can create the table, because I have to I want to have a reasonable list of cross-validated suggestions.
Okay, and I'm sorry, maybe I'll have to watch this back, but from the website to navigate to this page, what was this under? I know you selected the certain symptoms.
Okay, it is okay, right? Because I cleared up. It is under changing microbiome.
Changing microbiome. Okay.
So we have the cross-validation, and there you have the list of things which we have. Not sure, probably I should. Okay, with people with long COVID and ME-CFS, they often tend to have low blood pressure. Are you high or low, or do you have no idea?
It's pretty stable,
Okay.
but I have dysautonomia, so it could fluctuate.
Okay. Okay. High histamine DAO pattern is also there. Irritable bowel syndrome, which is common with chronic fatigue syndrome, and so it's something which may show up. You may have early signs of it at a moment, but there. So it basically Again, all this is by pattern matching. It's not predictive. It is just saying, hey, compared to other people, you have 65%, you have 65% more likely, more of the patterns than other people do.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a condition that happens to 2% of population, no worry. If a condition that happens to 40% of population, you're probably borderline.
Okay.
Okay, so that's there, but to go back to the classic UI, and if you go in beginner symptoms, you see everything there. Hey, guess what number one is?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. ME-CFS without IBS. You have long COVID. You don't seem to have IBS. And we have the first choice from pattern matching being right there. It's sort of, I have had people indicated that they got shocked because 8 out of the top 10 things were correct. So I'm not sure if you have ringing in the ears. If you start developing it, now you know why. It's your gut bacteria.
Wow. Okay.
So other things that could happen, again, all it is that 70% have it. So it's not outstanding amount. When you get up to 80 or 90 percentile, you generally will have it.
Okay.
So all it does, it gives odds, and now you go down, and you can just go through and take a look through things there. You don't seem to have any neurological, or you have, oh, okay, you have one neurological symptom, but not that bad. So you can go through. So that's,
yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought I had dizziness, daily dizziness. So
okay.
Pretty
in which case,
persistent.
just add that to your symptom list, and it will be factored in. Most of the time, it will add perhaps one more bacteria to the filter list.
Okay.
So generally, most of them tend to be clustered together with only 1 or 2 bacteria different. Now, we have 2 other ways of trying to. I'm giving people lots of choices, which people hate because they want simple answer that you get from naturopath. We show how with the R² site, you can go identify which probiotics will shift which particular bacteria, which is a sweet way of doing it. The other way is from your sample, I calculate out what your the compounds, the metabolites you are producing are, identify which ones you are too high or too low in, and that's too high and too low. Okay, and now what it does, it goes and takes a look at all of the probiotics, what they produce, and attempts to compensate with things which are unlikely to have. Number one is interesting because that actually showed up before in one of the conditions as in number one for reducing something, and it's E. coli, which is, we're working here from an assumption that this is the Mutaflora or Semaphore 2 probiotic. And generally, the Mutaflora tends, for some people, tend to have a whoppingly big impact on fixing the microbiome. I know the first time I took it when it was in a relapse, I spent a week crawling to the washroom because I was hurting like mad. In other words, it was literally a gut punch in terms of its impact. But then you go down below, and now I identify retail brand down below. For example, here one which comes through, and you can go through. So basically, that is one way of getting it. Some of these things are available only in mixtures, which is unfortunate, but that's why they're in the list. But trying to find them in isolation is problematic. So that's one way around it. The other way is we work on the enzyme production, which is a different way of splitting hairs. And now we do the same thing, and same thing down here as I'm referred to. Bacillus subtilis is sitting there too, being very high, a bunch of other things. So you can do that. So you could end up making a nice spreadsheet showing recommendations from each one, which one are positive and negative, and go for a consensus of probiotic suggestions. Again, I tend to use a consensus approach because nobody knows the definitive answer.
Yeah.
And because nobody knows the definitive answer, get 8 answers and do what everybody agrees on. Chances are the odds aren't going to be in your favor. Okay, last one is my experimental one. And it is using that, and it is not just probiotics, it looks at all food. So it basically, I did some reverse engineering to go from these foods modify this bacteria, and that bacteria produces or takes away these metabolites. So I have A to B to C. So I flipped it upside down. I'm doing C to B to A. Okay, again, I'm trying to fill the gaps where we don't have information there, and it goes up and does this backdoor calculation, which is why it's so-called experimental. Identifies the compounds you are high, compounds you are low, suggestions in terms of things to do, for example, blackberries there. But there is a new tweak addition, which a certain provider who made suggestions is, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top 99 and the bottom 1% and click, and what it's going to do is generate a question for a AI system.
Okay.
Click that, copy that. I'm going to go over to, let's take a look at Perplexity. Actually, I think it automatically opens a new window. Pop that in.
Yeah, I've been using Perplexity a lot, and just trying to prompt engineer as best as possible. I just learned last night that XML markdown formatting might be the better way to communicate, being that it may have been trained off that.
Yeah. Okay, so as you see, it does all sorts of things. There's no way I'm going to build up a database on all the metabolites and all the things. Just dealing with bacteria is a full-time job plus some. So hence, the ability to just go across and ask, as you see, it's still working on it. And the amount I sent across is relatively small. And only taking the top and bottom 1%, the most severe one. Okay, and in some cases actually comes out with suggestions. Avoid statins, treatment probiotics, dietary fiber, etc., etc. So this is a third way of getting things. Again, you can go for 2% or whatever. So you can go to your heart's content, try all of them, see what they come up. Some are better than others, but it gives you the ability to take what I've calculated and ask the AI, approaching the problem from a totally different direction.
Yeah, that's a good additional tool for sure.
Yeah. So, do I give you enough tools to confuse yourself?
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Definitely give me some guidance. I'm probably around like toggle 1, 2, and 3 as far as I'm no statistician, so it's definitely helpful to see in the user interface, kind of keep me to what I need. So it's definitely been helpful to navigate and just hear a different perspective, of course, because I get in my own thoughts. So
Okay, so my general suggestion for somebody with chronic fatigue or for long COVID is preferred change is always go to the cross-validated, mainly because it gives you a document you can walk into a doctor's office with, and you can discuss, because some of the things are antibiotics and other prescription items. So it
Hmm.
gives you the ability to walk into an MD's office and do it and have everything nicely documented to a unbelievable extent. 2,800 cross-references will generally blow most people's mind. You don't get published studies with 2,800 references.
Hmm.
So that's choice number one, which is the beginning. Choice number two, because people are so biased towards wanting to do probiotics, is go and do the consensus, then look at the probiotics. Take a look at these two. Generally, most of the time with long COVID and ME-CFS, E. coli comes up at the top. And that's generally Imidaclor and Semaphore 2. Semaphore 2 is much lower dosage. Interesting thing, it is sent in a small vial at normal temperature. It's fine. The Imidaclor, which in the US you get shipped in Canada on ice packs, is much higher dosages. So the Semaphore 2, we do know from studies for most people will persist for at least 8 weeks after just a single dosage. So it's a gentle way of going in there. And price-wise, I think it's about much cheaper, but you just basically put drops in the water, drink the water away, non-fluoridated water, preferably a non-chlorinated water. Just drink it away from meals, and you're fine, and you're not likely to get severe heart reaction. With Midoflor, there's a risk of that, as I can personally attest. And then you have additional ways of doing that. So that gives you a wide variety of ways of doing it. Again, you can go over and go to the old UI, which I intend to keep because it gives you, the simple UI is to make life simple. It gives you all sorts of additional information. Yeah. Um, with my statistician way, do you have dysbiosis? Oh, yes, you do. Because in theory, if you're dealing with random genesis, which are in theory relatively independent of each other, the odds of any percentile should be about the same, in which case you should have all of them here. And here you see there are some abnormal shifts, which would be on side of statistics, which means you have a dysbiosis, simple as that. Doesn't say what to do with it, but it does indicate you have a dysbiosis. I have had a few people come in and they had a beautiful looking chart there. So it is possible. It's just they don't expect it because dysbiosis will be there. We have the microbiome tree, which is generally better. The other charts are there, which are basically informational or let's explore. Um, and we do have a variety of ways of downloading your samples in terms of if you want to take a look at a sample in Excel, whatever, if you want to play around with it, you can download your sample and you can include whatever additional information you want in there. So you can play around. A few people do that because they want to be hands-on. Not everybody does it, but the microbiome tree is where it is. And you can set how you want to determine the range. And there are lots of different ranges there. For example, 28 there. And in this case, nothing in what they deem to be abnormal is there. So if you had done tests before and got the same results, you would have been normal. Magical solution. Just change your provider. Um, okay, and now you can go and do selection. Okay, for example, sulfur. It will filter based on different other compounds producing. That's actually some old data which I've forgotten I still had up there. But if you prefer instead of the cut of multiple ranges, want to do go classic box, oh, let's do classic lab ranges. And there we see the ones which classical lab ranges will go and flag as being abnormal. But as you can see, a lot of your stuff are in the middle range. So it's the oddities which are the ones
that are getting highlighted there.
Yeah, yeah. So again, you can filter by different ways, and you can work on building your own algorithms if you want. And I just simply have canned algorithms to work with different approaches, which I have found from experience seems to get reasonably good results. Keyword, reasonably good results, because once I get all the reasonably good results, I do a consensus report.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go back to Simple UI just to do a quick recap. I'm going to actually go through and click everything. And just give me suggestions. So I'm going to ignore everything else. Okay, and now once you get the suggestions there, the links to consensus report are sitting there. And there, and usually what I do is I look at take count and I have that creating. Now, if you hold the shift button down and click on something else, it will sort by whatever thing is. So that indicates the first thing is dietary fiber. Dietary fiber is what everybody tends to agree on. Personally, I find my own preference as preventative from getting chronic fatigue again is most mornings I start with either a barley or oatmeal porridge. Add a bit of yogurt sprinkled with some of my probiotic mixtures. And that's simply, that gives me a ton of fiber every morning to start the day.
Mm-hmm.
So we have whole grain. Actually, plantain is one of the things I usually add in. We have in England, so you see what the top choices are and what everybody agrees on. And the nice thing is the different ways of slicing and dicing is there. And you can go on the secondary menu and add additional ones to mix with different ways of doing it. So you can go to your heart's content.
Yeah, so what I pulled this down the other day, I think in a CSV, and uploaded it to AI, and I took the highest take net ratio to avoid to restructure it.
Okay, now I want to swing over to the green button. I'm not sure if you've ever tried it.
Yeah.
Green button takes you over to the food site, another auxiliary site, because my database is getting big. I have to create new databases to hold special items. It takes across the nutrients which you want to change, which ones you want to increase, which one you want to decrease. But here is where it comes in. There, first of all, it says quick take foods. It identifies the foods with high amounts of those foods. And it uses all ton of different databases. I forget, down the bottom there's a link, but there is something like 45 different food ingredient databases to make use of. Be warned, you could see things like fermented walrus. Because or caribou. So just be warned, you get some oddball things. I grabbed everything. Like Tima, I have no idea what that is. But those are all the good things. If you go back.
So these just are these are ordered based off the take net.
Right. Those are based on the ingredients you want to increase or decrease.
Okay. So say the higher the number, the better.
Yep. So quick avoid food is here. So it does, and that is all based, and you look at contradictions based on the nutrients here. So you can say, okay, well, I really want to increase this one. I have no idea what that chemical is, right? The ingredients. Click
Mhm.
here. Oh, it's only found in one thing. Walnut liqueur. Okay. Perhaps walnuts have it. It's hard to say. Again, we're dealing with sparse data, which gets, in one sense, very, very frustrating, but it's what we have to work from. Getting back to nutrients, quercetin, which can get as a supplement, but what foods? Oats. Oats porridge every morning. You get a quercetin that way. Not only do you get a fiber, you get a quercetin. Eating
Yeah.
primrose oil, mayapple, shallots, and onions are all high in them. And then you get things which layer. Malaysian mayapple. Have fun asking that at the local super value. Dill, basil, but the amount you see drops drastically. But look at oats. Oats porridge every morning looks particularly rational now. Let's take a look at the next one. Black elderberry is high, and the next one is pomegranate pure juice. It has less, but black elderberry, which is sold as a largest too, I believe, if I remember right.
Mm.
Sambucol, something like that, is very high in it. So that is there. Again, I'll let you explore more. Here's another one of these. I have no idea what food it contains. Almonds, only food that contains it.
Yeah, I
So
find myself yeah, I have to drill into this, and then I have to drill into a lot of the symptomology like HSV1 or EBV, because then that might be contraindicating. So then
you
that's
haven't.
this.
You haven't. I can't resolve all that, which is why I just say, okay, I can give you the data. Don't ask for advice. I'm not qualified. I'm a
Oh
statistician,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
No,
I
it's
can give
helpful.
you, if I can give you the data, and if you don't have too severe brain fog, you can use the data with patients to figure out how to help yourself. And it gives you an alternative, because the reality is most nutritionists and even most MD either goes over whatever study they happen to have randomly read the yesterday
Mhm.
and have not looked for counter-indicated studies saying the opposite. And they are. So here
Yeah.
you have the ability to have a far better perspective of everything. And hopefully the absolute simple, or if you want to take more ownership, you can go in and really, really dig down into things and get surprises. Like now, I think I have convinced you to have oat porridge every morning.
Yeah, with elderberry. So,
Yes. Okay.
yes.
More questions?
Let me see here. I think I may have. I think those are the core questions. I think honestly, it's just kind of playing back and forth. And I believe you recommend somewhere on your site kind of getting tested quarterly. Is it kind of takes.
Or my general okay. What I have seen happen is, okay, your microbiome has become shifted one way. You are now making a bunch of supplements which are intended to shift it that way. The problem is it doesn't lock in the middle. It will swing to the opposite side.
Mhm.
So now you need another set, which sometimes will contradict the first set to bring you closer and closer and closer, and then eventually stable. I noticed that particularly after one episode with chronic fatigue syndrome, where I was testing, basically got the test, did a result, 6 weeks later did it again, and I looked at the result and said, what in the world? That's totally contradictory to my last results.
Mhm.
6 weeks later, they're back to what it was before, but the amount of shift done. So there is this back and forth. My usual suggestion for economics is get a test, get a suggestion, go a minimum of 6 weeks to 12 weeks, 3 months. and then do a retest to find out where your next course adjustment is. And realize it is back and forth, which
Yeah.
in some sense is frustrating because you want a single shift, locking it in. No,
Be done.
you end up going back and forth.
Yeah.
But the thing is, using things like the comparison between samples, hopefully will bring confidence in the progress, the mechanism. The fact that you see 16 out of 17 made significant improvement, one made a minor improvement of all the bacteria shift matches. That should generally convince you, okay, there's objective improvement here. It's worth going onwards.
Yeah, I know Biome Site has a test that's $99. It's meant for like helping out financially for like long COVID, chronic fatigue.
Yep.
And that's the one I typically use. But do you recommend any other versions other than stick with the same?
Okay, it's the same as the regular test. The Biome Site test is the one which is sweetest because of the size of our samples with metadata. And where that gives us the most insightfulness as to what symptoms you're likely to have.
Okay.
If you go to another test, which we have 10 samples of, even though those all 10 people have given their symptoms, I won't be able to tell statistically or make predictions statistically of what symptoms you'd like to have. And the catch is, making a prediction means I know which bacteria you want to focus on. That's the flip side of being able to make predictions and marking off which ones you have, because that tells me which bacteria we should focus on.
Okay.
So Biome Site is my recommended one for the best value for the buck. Value at $99. Excuse me, nobody else is cheaper. Most of the time you're paying double. When you get the results back, anybody below a certain number, it's sitting at a few hundred, which is the shotgun, is not going to give you more information. B, the way microbiome works by trying to identify the bacteria which are the problems, not from studies or from, oh, I think it's this one, speculation, which many professionals are prone to do. It does it statistically. Say, okay, these are the ones which appear to be, which are statistically most significant to be the cause of your problem. And therefore, let's concentrate on those and ignore the noise or everything else. Yes, you may have just one high, but don't get concerned about it because it's not connected with your key symptoms. You want to focus on your key symptoms, and in time, that probably as a side effect will fix that. So that's my attitude is, keep the Biome Site. It gives the best value for the money, gives you the best bang for suggestions from Microbiome Prescription, and it simply works. They do a good job.
Yeah,
plus,
and okay.
Plus the fact that if you change your different tests, then you can't compare test results.
That was a concern as well. So I'm glad I chose a good one. And I do track my data. I know you recommended a watch. I use Garmin, but I have been recommended like a portable digestive breath tester. Have you seen any benefits of adding that to a type of protocol like this?
To be frank, honest, no. I have severe doubts about accuracy even of the clinical SIBO test. They have a very high 30 or 40% of false positive and false negatives. There is a definitive test, but that is actually having to open yourself up and take a sample to find out if there is overgrowth. The advantage of that test is you actually find out which bacteria are involved. The breath tests indicate that this gas is being produced, and then they make speculation as to what bacteria is producing the gas.
Gotcha.
And I don't like speculation. Give me the hard facts. Show me a test showing that it's this bacteria, and then we'll treat this bacteria. Don't tell me you got high methane, therefore we need to treat just one particular bacteria.
Yeah, I read conflicting things on there, but
no.
Yeah.
as I said, I'm old school science. Give me a definitive objective measurement so I'm happy. Give me an inference when objective measurements are possible, maybe not preferred or willing to be done, then I tend to be a little bit more cautious. So
Yeah.
my suggestion is to probably be better spending the money on the retest than the SIBO, or even if you are gun-ho, spend $25 on what I'm using, which is now down to $25 on Temu or one of those, and it gives you a ton of other things such as even it gives you heart rate, body temperature, glucose. It gives you a ton of features which the Garmin doesn't give you, and they get away with it because they are manufactured outside of the U.S., so they're not subject to U.S. regulations.
Yeah.
Whereas Apple Watch ever can make any claim or even allow to show on their application those values, even though they may actually have them because of the FDA regulations.
Mm.
Now, whether they're not medical grade, but they are good or as an indicator if there is something there. Let's see if I can show you. Let me think.
I think I haven't played with it. My Garmin does share their API. I was trying to contemplate building a health dash.
Okay, so I actually not probably okay. For example, I don't have night sweats, but at night my temperature spikes.
No.
And then the rest of the day is normal. But keeping track of how long the spike is at night gives me insight to how I'm doing. If the spikes are less, I'm guaranteeing myself to being better. If not, let's see, actually. Let me take a second to get it up.
Have you built yourself like a personal dashboard to merge in, all your metrics?
No, I don't. I mean, the Android app keeps track over time, and I simply keep an eye out for any shifts which are doing. For example, a while back I had cellulitis. Hey, I could see the temperature increase from the watch, which simply confirmed, okay, my suspicion of cellulitis is warrants going into seeing the doctor, or things like it tracks number of steps, tracks O2 level, which to me is important because I have suffered from hypercoagulation, hypoxia. So if I see the average O2 dropping, usually I go over and start hit the fibrinolytics and other things to help the blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is that sort of, okay, I've had this problem and let's just go over and monitor it. Doesn't have to be continuous monitoring it, but it just sort of there. So it just sort of, I mean, $24 is a relatively cheap experiment.
Yeah.
But I should warn you one thing. Usually a charge lasts for 3 or 4 days, unlike certain other watches which need to be charging every day.
Oh, that's good.
So it's just sort of a I've been pleased with it. At $25, and excuse me, it's quite affordable risk. And hey, 2 watches, well, okay, let's just compare them. And there again, it's mainly to detect abnormalities, early warning symptoms, things like monitoring body temperature is nice, monitoring of O2 level is nice. Some of the other things like glucose level during the day, it's nice. And main thing is to keep an eye out for changes of pattern. With change of pattern, it shows up, something is happening, so you need to pay a bit better attention to whatever is going on. So again, it's mainly a early warning system. Not medical grade, but
Yeah. Well, when you are you in remission still right now? If you don't
Yes,
mind me asking. Okay.
yes.
Do you notice a change in well, first off, when you went into remission, did it just like happen overnight? Did you have to
No,
taste
it
in
was
addition?
it was slow and gradual, and from being on dealing on chronic fatigue syndrome groups, especially the old E groups, um, from decades ago, literally decades ago. The thing which I was very aware of is that recovery is very fragile. So what I was on disability. I started working for a small local firm, volunteering, and volunteering. So I kept my disability and didn't have to worry about things. Volunteering with them for an hour a day, and then a couple of weeks later, I jacked it up to 2 hours a day, keeping things very careful and monitoring everything very carefully. So
Mm,
basically, the thing is, it is generally the thing that I know that I'm particularly sensitive to triggering, I think most people are, is stress,
mhm.
which means learning to let go of stress, learning not to stress yourself, and where practical, try finding jobs that are low stress. You want to have a manager. Two of my episodes was caused by, how to say, a change of manager where I was working, and the new manager was a bad. In some cases, they were asked to leave the company 6 months later, but the damage was already done.
Yeah.
I'm working half time now. I could work full time if one, half time there, and then working with Microbiome Prescription and two consulting gigs with microbiome test providers, trying to give the better results, so that, hey, they get better results. But so I'm working half time there, just work from home hour. But it's a sweet gig because the founder is still in the company. He owns the company. Um, job turnover. This company being overturned. Job turnover is ridiculously low for a software company. As in, we use one
Yeah.
person every 5 years because they retire.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, that's unheard of.
it's, hey, even sweeter. He has a summer policy. Everybody gets identical same pay.
Ah,
Everybody gets,
interesting.
so there's no competition. People are on call. So if they deal with companies around the world, they have to support their software installed in something like 65 different refineries things. So the people on call, but I don't want to be on call. I've had it with call. I don't want the stress. So boss, no problem. So he said, send me off on suitable projects for me. And I put in as many hours as to fill a week. I can put in more, I can put in less. And hey, it works. It's a lovely situation. So at 73, I'm happy and productive. I have absolutely no stress. The boss said, okay, when you get it done, you get it done. There's no things like deadlines.
Hmm.
Whereas when I was working in Microsoft, many years were good, but then Microsoft became the quick witch firm for MBAs. So they came in and they then proceeded to jack the culture.
Hmm.
My One of my bosses that used to work there described um, the early days. They got a new boss, and he was saying everybody has to come in on Saturdays and start work. We got to get things out the door. He was the senior lead on it. People loved him. So he walked into the group and said, okay, everybody, we're going skiing for the next week. My expense, just pack up yourself. We're out of here for a week. The whole crew disappeared for a week of skiing. He came back. There's a note on his door from the division manager say, please come and talk to me when you get back. He walked in, and the manager said, "Oh, so he was dreading the
Oh,
worst
no.
because manager said, "Oh, by the way, your new boss should be here next week, um, and everything is cool." Oh, and as he turned to leave the door, he said, "Oh, by the way, make sure you submit expense reports for your team building episode." So that was guy. And by the way, he was the same guy who put multimedia in Windows 3.
Oh, wow.
So well respected, but it was just sort of okay. That type of boss you respect, you like, and then you get the other type. So main problem in finding a software industry is that you get a good boss, and then 6 months later they change positions, and you get a how how do we get rid of them easily, or you suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
literally learning to pick your job opportunities, and that means you frequently will end up having to adjust not to go for what you're capable of, but going for what is healthy for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is something which sometimes is hard for people to make the adjustment, but is a key factor for staying in remission.
Hmm.
And so just take it, say, okay, the reality is, yes, you're brilliant, you could do all sorts of things. You could work 70-hour weeks. You have the smarts for it. People have high expectations of you. Oh, no, I'm going to a monastery instead.
Yeah.
So,
No,
so
I understand.
yeah. So the ladder adjustment takes something, and sometimes you end up having to really fight with family and former colleagues because you are suddenly doing so much less than what you are capable of.
Hmm.
And that psychological adjustment is part of the thing, which is no reason why alpha personality tends to be the most prone to type alpha, the most prone to getting chronic fatigue syndrome in terms of percentages,
Oh, wow.
because they have the stress of their jobs added to other challenges and the stress of being an alpha. So, okay, any other questions?
No, I've taken so much of your valuable time on the weekend, so I'll stop it there because you answered everything and some. So I
Okay,
appreciate it.
I'll ship you a link to the video once we are done, and I'll probably get it pretty much up how it is to my channel so other people can share from it, because I think other people going through this video will be beneficial to them. I tend to be a bit hit and there all over the place, and we've covered everything pretty much which is on the site, which sort of gives you other people a good thing. So thank you for being willing to be recorded and everything else.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, Ken, and all the work you're doing.
Okay, have a good weekend.
You too, sir.